I get asked this question all the time. AK, what are the best books that I can read to become a better trader and investor? Well, in this video, we're going to get into it, especially because the markets are so crazy right now. People don't know what's going on. This should help because in a lot of these books is a lot of experience that you and I don't have. The guys who wrote these books, the guys featured in these books, they've been around for decades. And remember, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme, so it helps to get their wisdom. And make sure you watch this whole video because there are likely some books that you've never heard of. But before we get into it, if you are interested in finding stocks that benefit in this type of market, then check out our explosive stocks checklist. There's a link down below in the description and comments. It's a free checklist that shows you what criteria our team uses to find the stocks that we invest in. It's great. It's way shorter than a book. So yeah, definitely check it out if you're going to be reading anyway. So the first book that you need to read is Reminiscences of a Stock Operator by Edwin Lefebvre. That's the proper French pronunciation. And by the way, all these books plus more can be found at MacroOps. We made a huge list. This book goes over the story of Jesse Livermore. And Jesse Livermore is the first original global macro trader. He's like the first market wizard from way back in the day. This is the book that every single trader reads, every single great guy that you've heard about in the global macro game, like Ray Dalio or Paul Tudor Jones, Stan Druckenmiller, George Soros. They've all gotten inspiration from this guy. As you'll read in the book, he made and lost multiple fortunes. In the 1929 stock market crash, he made $100 million. He was the original guy shorting the market and making a killing. He did so much of that the government had to say, Mr. Livermore, please stop. You're not allowed to do it anymore. They called him the boy plunger. And a plunger is basically, another word for a speculator, a person who takes on risk for big rewards. But Jesse Livermore became a legend back then, and his legend still lives on till today. And you guys have heard me quote this book so often because there's so much trading wisdom in it. Because really, markets, they don't change because human psychology doesn't change. There's different technology than before, but like I said before, history pretty much repeats itself, just in slightly different ways. One of the best quotes from that book is this one right here. After spending many years in Wall Street and after making and losing millions of dollars, I want to tell you this. It never was my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting tight. Got that? My sitting tight. I swear I must quote that every other video that I make, I think, because it's so important. It sticks out. That's my favorite lesson from the book. Just the patience that you need to have as an investor. Everyone wants action. Everyone wants to treat the stock market like a casino, where you could bet as much as you want, play as much as you want, and it's really fun. But real stock market investing isn't actually fun. Most of the time you're just sitting there and waiting for the right opportunity. And all that waiting can make you crazy if you're not disciplined. And if you lose that discipline and you pounce at the wrong time, that's when you start losing money. It's the whole concept of over trading. And we've all done it because it is very difficult to just sit. So you sit, you wait for the opportunity. When it finally comes, then you pounce. And then you get to sit and wait some more because you got to ride out the whole trend. There's another part in the book where Livermore is talking to the old stockbroker, and the old stockbroker kept saying something like, it's a bull market, and eventually Jesse learns what that actually means. It means that once you find the opportunity and you're in the trend, then you need to sit there in the trend. Once again, the temptation becomes to overtrade it, jump in and out and in and out. But again, Livermore's big money came from sitting tight. Let the market do the work for you. He said something like, when I graduated to the next level of speculation, I realized I couldn't just be trading around. I needed to be in the big trends. So when that old guy said, hey, it's a bull market, he meant that what you need to be doing is placing your money in there and sitting. Don't screw around with it. That's why in that book, you're not gonna have Livermore telling you about chart patterns or how to buy breakouts or something. He talks about what happens to every trader once they have the basics. The success comes from managing yourself. Can you be patient? Can you control yourself? Can you control your emotions and your urges? If you can, you will be successful in the market. And what's interesting about Livermore, which you don't see when you're reading this particular book, but he was a deeply troubled guy. He might have actually been bipolar or something. So just like he made $100 million in that stock market crash, he's lost multiple fortunes. His genius was like a double-edged sword. He would win a bunch and then lose a bunch. And he would go through a lot of depressive states. And eventually, sadly, he ended his own life. So in the book, you can see all the great advice that he gives that he learned. He was struggling to follow what he had learned. And again, that comes back to the self-control. And of course, if he had mental issues going on, which it seems like he did, that's a different story. But you could also learn some lessons about why he lost so much of his money. Sure, he gained a lot, but why couldn't he keep it? So really, it's a tale of amazing potential, but also one of caution of what you don't want to do. Fantastic book. You need to read it. And one more interesting fact about Livermore. This is his granddaughter. Now, if for some reason, as soon as you saw this picture, you found your hands down your pants just out of habit, then snap out of it because this is a family channel. All I'm trying to tell you is the important fact that Brandy Love is Jesse Livermore's granddaughter. Her real name is Tracey Lynn Livermore. And if you don't know who Brandy Love is, well, just don't Google her at work. But then again, you're probably working from home right now, aren't you? So Google away. See right here, granddaughter of the stock trader, Jesse Lawrenceston Livermore. And hey, she's from Michigan, Dearborn. That's where I'm at, not Dearborn, but Michigan. Wow, we raise our kids well in Michigan. How about that? Have you guys seen all our quarantine protests lately? We made it in the national news. Did you see how huge those guns were at the protest? Because that's right, in Michigan, we're real good at shooting deer. It's crazy that she's from Dearborn, Michigan. I go to Dearborn all the time, it's great. It's actually not great, it's kind of terrible, but it does have the largest Arab population in the United States, so it has great Middle Eastern food. Actually, there's so many Middle Eastern people in Dearborn that the McDonald's, the menus are in Arabic. And my favorite restaurant down there is a place called Lashish. Now, Lashish is a place I went to my whole life until it got shut down because they found out that the owner was supporting terrorism. Which I mean, like, come on, man, were you really trying to promote these stereotypes against your people? So Lashish is shut down for a number of years. I was sad. Well, I was happy because, you know, less terrorism, but my stomach was sad. But then it reopened under new management in Dearborn with the same menu, with the same ingredients. And it was attached to a strip club. So every time I went there, I got to go there and just eat my hummus and just bob my head because the music was just bumping next door. And then in the restaurant, you're surrounded by strippers anyway because they all go there to eat when they're done with, you know, their workout. And then it's really authentic in the strip club because if you're ever getting a lap dance, then you could just smell their garlic breath and you're like, lashish. So if you're ever in Michigan, maybe visit Dearborn. Maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. It's Dearborn. Okay, should I move on now? Yes, okay, I will. Next book, How to Make Money in Stocks by William ONeal, who is the founder of Investors Business Daily. If you've ever read that newspaper, it's pretty solid. So William ONeal is also a market wizard, which is the book that we'll talk about next. But he created Investors Business Daily, and his strategy that he's put together has been used by many successful investors. He's probably taught the most people about investing more than anyone. And this book is fantastic because it gives you a how-to guide on how to invest. Like, it gives you a full strategy. It teaches you technical analysis, it teaches you fundamental analysis, it teaches you how to combine them. It even teaches you how to evaluate the overall market so you could avoid crashes and whatnot. So overall, what William ONeal teaches is a growth stock strategy. So you end up finding stocks like Amazon, Netflix, stocks that have that huge long runway over a number of years. This is actually a strategy that I started with when I started investing, and it taught me so much. But eventually I moved to the next level, which was automating the whole thing, using algorithms. So, you know, I talk about the NASDAQ All-Stars all the time. That momentum trading system is basically the next level of this strategy, because there are a few problems with this strategy. For example, it just takes way too much time to do, and it doesn't have strict enough rules. Like, I like strategies, but I love systems even more because it is strict and you just follow what the system says. This strategy has a lot more discretion, and I also don't agree with the trading rules as much that they recommend. But the benefit of this book and why it's so important is because it gives you that full education that you need. Like, I never would have gotten to the All-Stars and my momentum system if I didn't know this information about how stocks work. And William ONeal is really the best person to teach that. Here's a quote that he had: "The whole secret to winning big in the stock market is not to be right all the time, but to lose the least amount possible when you're wrong." So a lot of trading wisdom like that, you'll find it in this book, coupled with actually how to invest. The next book is Market Wizards from Jack Schwager. Every single investor or trader has already read this book or should read it. This basically has a bunch of interviews with top traders and investors. So all the legends that you could think of, Big Daddy Dalio, our favorite, he's in these books. Stan Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones, William ONeal, like who we just talked about in the previous one. And it's funny because a bunch of market wizards actually used ONeal's strategy, and they were all in this book. And when I say in this book, this is actually a series of like 3 or 4 books. And in these books, it's great because you're reading all this information from these traders that have done it all, seen it all. So you get to see what they thought and what they were doing during the crash periods, how they managed their portfolios, what they think is important to learn. I remember my dad, who used to be an investment manager. When I was a kid, I would see him reading this book all the time. And this is one of those books, just like all these books that I'm mentioning, that you should reread at least once a year. Because depending on where you are in your journey as an investor, you're gonna pull something new from it each time. Funny story about this book is I used to live out in Las Vegas. So I used to live in this penthouse on the Strip. And it sounds cool, but it wasn't cool at all. It was basically like a cement cell. Felt like I was in jail just because of the situation that we were in. It was a terrible time. But that is where I met Tyler and Alex, who are my partners at Macro Ops. So Tyler was my roommate at the time at the penthouse, and we had a terrible boss, just a complete idiot, neurotic nutcase dude. And he would just berate us all the time, like, oh, you guys are stupid, you're never gonna make it in this industry. And I'm like, all right, then why did you hire us? Clearly you're the stupid one. He's like, you need to be reading Market Wizards all the time, but instead you just sit there smiling at each other. I'm like, yeah, we're happy. I mean, I like Tyler, Tyler likes me, we like Alex, Alex likes us. We're all gonna sit here and smile. What's wrong? And Tyler was sitting there like, but boss, I literally have Market Wizards on my nightstand next to my bed. I read it every night. You can ask AK, I swear to God, what do you want from us? Tyler doesn't actually sound like that, but it was just so dumb. Tyler was a great roommate though. One time he put his gun on my bed. If you're wondering why he had a gun, it's because he's from Texas and all Texas people have guns. Alex had guns too because he's a military guy. All military guys have guns. I was the one guy who didn't have a gun, but Tyler put his gun on my bed and I was like, hey, well, what's that for? He's like, nothing, just keep it there. And I was like, oh, okay, why not? That seems like a safe place for a gun. And I didn't bring any of my stuffed animals from home, so I figured, you know, why not have this gun? So it sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. Then one time this girl came over and she's like, AK, what's that on your bed? I was like, it's Tyler's gun, obviously. I'm like, what? Isn't it cool? You like it? No. What's wrong with you? Wait, you mean what's wrong with us? Because it's me and Tyler in this room. We're friends. I don't know why she didn't think that was cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little bed gun. I mean, I'm from Michigan. I like big guns, shooting deer, protesting things that make sense, and porn. Shout out Brandy Love. Here's a good quote from the book. There's no single market secret to discover, no single correct way to trade the markets. Those seeking the one true answer to the markets haven't even gotten as far as asking the right question, let alone getting the right answer. And that's so true. There's a million different ways to trade the market, and that's why a guy like Buffett can be successful and so can Dalio. Same reason a day trader can be successful and so can a long-term investor. There's no one way to do it. There's no big secret. It's just finding what works for you. So I guess the big secret would be that there is no secret. It's just personalizing it with your personality. Next book is The Art of Learning from Josh Whiteskin. And Josh, who there's a picture of him as a little kid, he was actually a chess prodigy as a child. That movie Searching for Bobby Fischer is actually based off him. And Josh is a genius, obviously, but he's also good at explaining how to learn things. Because he didn't just stop at being the world's chess champion. He also moved on to become the world champion in Tai Chi push hands. Then there's a few other things that he's world class at. He just really understands the art of learning, which is why that book is called that. And in the markets, it is a game of constant learning, so you're gonna want to learn from the best on how to learn. One of the best concepts I found in the book was the idea of making smaller circles. So what you'll realize when you're learning investing or trading or really any skill is that it feels like you're going in a circle. This happens in business too. You start with strategy A and then you're like, oh, that doesn't work, so you go to strategy B. You're like, oh, I can improve this more. You're at C, then you're like, oh, I learned this new thing. Then you go to D and you improve one more time and all of a sudden you're back at A. And you're like, wait a minute, did I just go in an entire circle? Was I right all along? Well, in a way, yes, you did go in a circle because you started with one strategy, went on a long journey and came back to that same strategy. But when you come back to that point A, you know way more than you did before. So it's almost completely different because you have a deeper level of understanding. So when Josh talks about making smaller and smaller circles, that's basically how you learn. You do keep hitting the same things over and over again, but that circle becomes smaller because you're getting closer and closer to that point where you finally get it. And it can be really frustrating because it feels repetitive. It feels like, oh, I already did this. Oh, I'm screwing up. I'm back at step one again. What's going on? But no, it's all a part of the process. So another visual thing I like to think of is instead of just making circles, you're actually going deeper and deeper. So it's like you're digging deeper into the well of knowledge in a circle. But point A up here is not going to be the same as point A down here. You just know way more and you know what different things mean. You know how to put it together. That same strategy or whatever becomes way more effective. But that's just one of the concepts you're going to learn in the book. Very good book. And then of course we're going to have Big Daddy Dalio, Ray Dalio's Principles. And this was before he actually had a book when we made this article, when it was just a PDF. You can see he is so good at drawing. Look at that smiley face, has a nose and everything. Smiley faces just completely change when you give them a nose. It always makes it look just a little bit creepy. But anyway, Principles is so great, not just because of all the macroeconomics that you can learn, but because it teaches you how to think properly. It teaches you how to go back to the first principles and build something up. So you'll see in his book, Dalio says it a bunch of of times. Like, don't just take my word for something. Think about it yourself and see if you think what I'm saying is true or not. And then if you do think it's true, then sure, apply it to your life. But it always comes back to thinking for yourself, which is what you need to do in life and markets. And he has a really good way of explaining how you should think about things. Like, you should be searching for the truth of something and taking out all your biases. You got to come to terms with what is reality, because you can't fight reality. You can only work within reality to get what you want or achieve or build what you want. And one of the best things I learned from this book, you know, indirectly, he doesn't talk about this, I don't think, but it's the difference between a conversation and an argument. Now, 99% of the time when you talk to another person, it just becomes an argument. It's both sides trying to prove their point, and it's fruitless. It's stupid because neither side is going to change their mind, and it's the reason why I really don't talk to people anymore. Quarantine really hasn't been that much different for me, but with a few individuals, you're able to actually have a conversation. And a conversation is when both parties put their egos aside and they say, you know what, together we can find the truth of this matter. We don't care who's right or who's wrong because we can both win in this conversation by just taking our knowledge to the next level together. You're gonna know stuff that I don't know, and I'm gonna know stuff that you don't know. Together we'll figure it out. That's a conversation. That's what you want to be doing when you talk to people, not arguing, because arguing doesn't lead you anywhere. Conversations, though, you both come out better. Here's a good quote: "The best advice I can give you is ask yourself what you want, then ask what is true, and then ask yourself what should be done about it." I believe that if you do this, you'll move much faster towards what you want to get out of life than if you don't. It's a great book. I got 2 copies right over there. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you get this explosive stocks checklist, because they'll give you another strategy to find great stocks in this market. There's a link down below in the description and comments. It's free. Check it out. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because we got more content coming out all the time. I can talk and talk and talk and talk some more. So if you got nothing else better to do, then sure, subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Stay fallible out there. Bye.